Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first ever King Gizzard and the Wizard Royal Rumble. The purpose of this is to once and for all settle what is the greatest King Gizzard album through not only my questionable tastes, but also through crudely animated violence. I'm gonna be completely honest, I've never watched a single pro wrestling match, so I don't actually know how the Royal Rumble works, nor do I care. I just think it's a cool name. There will be 8 contenders, each representing an album from the band's discography, including In Your Mind Fuzz, Quarters, Paper Mache Dream Balloon, Nonagon Infinity, Flying Microtonal Banana, Murder of the Universe, Polygondwanaland, and Gumboot Soup. They will compete in a bracket for the crown of my favorite album, a very prestigious crown, might I add. That's right, viewer, a grand total of 7 death matches. You heard that right, the opponents have signed away their very lives in order to fight here today. One last thing I should mention is, yes, I could have very well made a 16-fighter bracket, but frankly, that's more than double the work, and most of those other albums I haven't listened to. The records here today I have all listened to numerous times, and frankly, know like the back of my hand. Our opening match today is Flying Microtonal Banana versus In Your Mind Fuzz! Flying Microtonal Banana was, of course, not only the first of 5 LPs they released in 2017, but also the first I heard of King Gizzard. It has easily one of the coolest gimmicks out of the competition, being performed using microtonal tuning, basically the nooks and crevices between traditional Western notes. In Your Mind Fuzz may seem like just a regular krautrock album, but that's exactly what it wants you to think. In actuality, it's easily the most psychedelic out of any participant here today. But what really gives it the strength to be here is without a doubt the amazing songwriting. Now, without further ado, let the match begin! Flying Microtonal Banana definitely has the more distinct sound, using a lot of sounds from In Your Mind Fuzz and various other albums, and transforming it with more foreign influences, like on the Middle Eastern Billabong Valley. But that may just be the only leg up it has on In Your Mind Fuzz. Fuzz has some truly impressive moments. Take the 5-song-long jam session that begins the album, or the 7-minute-long Am I in Heaven. Despite being pretty long, there's enough variety to continue my engagement. When Banana takes a crack at these, such as on Rattlesnake or Open Water, the ambition comes off as undercooked. At the very least, it is produced more effectively than Mind Fuzz, but Microtonal Banana simply can't match up to the insanely solid track listing. Next up is Paper Mache Dream Balloon versus Quarters. Paper Mache is arguably the album that capped off Act 1 of King Gizzard's career. Its whole shtick is that since the previous albums they had made heavily dabbled in electric instruments, for this project they exclusively relied on acoustics, flutes, bongos, upright basses, a very odd style for King Gizzard. In the other corner, Quarters, releasing a mere 6 months before Paper Mache. Quarters is sort of simple to explain. There are 4 songs, each exactly 10 minutes and 10 seconds long. Because of the structure, many elements of these songs haven't been seen on any Gizzard projects before or after. And the bout has begun. If I have to be honest, both of these albums are slightly lackluster when it comes to variety, though both have a lot which makes them stand out from the other fighters here. It's hard to say which one of them will be versatile enough to emerge from this brawl victorious. Quarters, although starkly divided with the 4-track structure, does heavily rely on neo-psychedelia, and on God Is in the Rhythm, the band sounds downright hypnagogic. Paper Mache Dream Balloon, on the other hand, is almost completely sunshine pop, albeit with a major detour in the middle of the track list with Trapdoor and Bitter Boogie. So which of these two handles their primary genres with better care? Despite having a third of the songs, Quarters narrowly outclasses Paper Mache in this department due to the fact that so many songs on that LP sound really samey. For example, NGRI Bloodstain and Cold Cadaver. Even still, some of them are instantly memorable, but it makes for a kind of boring experience when they keep reusing choruses. On Quarters, the only one that goes on for too long to my ears is Infinite Rise. Everything else justifies the 10 minutes. All of that, and I haven't even mentioned Quarter's best song, The River, possibly the best jazz-based King Gizzard song. And Quarters wins! The next two fighters are Polygondwanaland versus... On the left side, we have Polygondwanaland in all its progressive, spacey, but most importantly, Creative Commons glory. The only real gimmick about this one is the fact that it was intended to be bootlegged, and everything necessary for production was made available by the band. Of course, this has nothing to do with the quality of the album, so it won't come up at all in the real fight. The factor that distinguishes it most from the others is the strange time signatures, and how measured the music is, opting for a slow-building, mysterious narrative with each of the 4 sections. On the right side, we have the reigning champion, Nonagon Infinity. You guys know that energy drink called Bang that has like triple the caffeine of every other energy drink? Nonagon Infinity is like the Bang of King Gizzard albums, except it won't kill you in moderate to high quantities. Note that I have never drinking Bang before because of that reason. In fact, the whole point of Nonagon is to have it play on repeat forever. Of course, nobody's gonna do this, but it's pretty cool that the last track loops directly back into the first. Personally, I think this is the most genius King Gizzard gimmick ever employed, but not just because it's a loop. Who cares about that? Mainly because it pushes the band to, no matter what, always keep the momentum going during the runtime. And with that, let the fight commence! If I have to be honest, this is probably the closest match that will be fought today besides the grand final. I love both of these albums dearly. Take Polygon, which was the second album on the channel that I ever talked about. I really thought, after the disappointment of Sketches of Brunswick East, that it was safe to say that they had run out of steam. But no, it turns out the 4th album of 2017 did the trick. It was refreshing, and arguably the grandest artistic statement since Nonagon Infinity, actually. Even with that said, I don't think there's a doubt in my mind that Nonagon Infinity takes the victory. It's just too good. Every single one of the tracks is incredibly memorable, even if they sound somewhat similar. Nonagon Infinity just emanates pure, unadulterated power! And I love it! A bit of a funny aside about Nonagon, by the way. I got the record on CD, and when I first ripped it, something in my computer must have screwed up, because for some reason, the 6th track, Evil Death Roll, only exported the first 2 seconds. So for about 9 months, I just thought Evil Death Roll was a 2-second long weird interlude track to get it to 9 songs, when in actuality, it's the longest song on the album. Moral of the story, there's a reason why CDs are a dying medium. And now for the last round of the quarterfinals, Murder of the Universe versus Gumboot Soup. Murder, in my view, is the most tragic King Gizzard album, not because of any music, but rather how so many people wrote it off because they hated the narration, which is the big thing with this album. It's divided into 3 acts, the first 2 narrated by some lady, then the last one narrated by a cyborg, which is just some text-to-speech voice. This isn't the first time Giz has utilized narration. I've heard that Eyes Like the Sky has a spaghetti western story, but I haven't listened to it, so... Based on the cover and some of the lyrical references, it is a successor to Nonagon Infinity. On the opposing side, Gumboot Soup is the final of 5 albums from 2017, released on December 31st. This one has a gimmick, but it's a pretty strange one, even among other King Gizzard albums. It takes all the sounds they used throughout the year and threw them all into a pot, or more appropriately, a boot. The tracks may not be consistent, but the soup is tasty. What can I say? The soup is Let the fight begin! I'm just gonna come right out and say it. I really don't think Gumboot has a chance, frankly, and that's pretty much entirely due to how much of a compilation it sounds like. There really isn't room for any cohesion whatsoever. But honestly, that's the only thing I think is a weakness. A lot of the cuts do sound great on their own. In fact, I love a lot of them. it just can't deliver the same experience that Murder of the Universe can. And Murder of the Universe delivers in spades. I mean, the narration is just a part of it. Each part of the album has its own storyline, and it continues building this underlying mythology. It's pretty impressive. Don't worry, I'll talk about more of the actual music from Murder of the Universe. But this one just seems like a shoo-in. But now, it shall be a boot out. You know what? Let's make the next fight Nonagon versus Murder, because I think everybody here knows how Quarters versus Mind Fuzz is gonna go. Let's begin. Murder of the Universe is honestly the more ambitious album of the two. The entire Altered Beast saga, I think, is pretty solid overall. It's slightly repetitive at times, but overall, I think the progression is pretty effective. The bass of the song itself is great. The real standout for me is the second act, the Lord of Lightning versus the Balrog. Not only does it have the best storytelling, but also the songs are magnificent, and they work on their own, unlike a lot of the other acts. Han Taiyumi and the Murder of the Universe is the last one, and easily the weakest. The only full song is Digital Black. That song is great, but there's literally no other full songs for the rest of the album. Everything else is just an Australian text-to-speech voice narrating. And 1, the narration isn't good to listen to. 2, the actual thing that it's narrating is disgusting. It's about the universe being consumed in cyborg vomit. Don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to that concept, but now I avoid the final third of the LP for the most part. When you look at the two records, Nonagon Infinity and Murder of the Universe, as the predecessor and the follow-up respectively, not just because both of them have the same castle on their cover, and not just because there are a handful of lyrical references, and not just because the song Some Context is literally a sample of People Vultures from Nonagon, but mainly because the songwriting is so similar, you can see that the elements they carry over work. I think where Murder gets real inconsistent is in the new things it tries to bring to the table. Again, the spoken word strengthens the second act of the album, but practically ruins the last part. And that is why Nonagon Infinity takes the match. Let's get back to Quarters versus I'm In Your Mind Fuzz real quick. There's no way that Quarters can win. Mind Fuzz wins without breaking a sweat. And now, for the final brawl of the tournament, I'm In Your Mind Fuzz versus Nonagon Infinity. As I mentioned before, this is gonna be the closest match, so I'm really setting my standards high. We gotta comb through these nice and thorough-like. Okay, to start, I do think Nonagon is marginally more focused, but you could make the argument that Evil Death Roll is a bit aimless. But there really aren't many other lulls like that. Mind Fuzz, mostly due to the longer songs, doesn't have that razor-sharp precision so consistently like on Nonagon tracks. But then again, there are many songs on Nonagon that do sound slightly underwritten, meaning they just have a lot of repeated parts. Which isn't necessarily a terrible thing, don't get me wrong. Comparing the first 13 minutes of both albums, both of which are kind of structured as a singular session, I think Mind Fuzz does come out on top, because it does employ a good deal more instrumental variety compared to those of Robot Stop, Big Fig Wasp, and Gamma Knife. Another thing, what is undoubtedly the most integral part of the sound of Nonagon and Mind Fuzz, I think it's how psychedelic they both are, and frankly, I think Mind Fuzz takes the general sound in a more interesting direction, especially compared to Nonagon. In general, that's probably what gives it the upper hand over Nonagon Infinity. I'm In Your Mind Fuzz is the more versatile album. Nonagon Infinity does do a lot within its sound, but Mind Fuzz has more variety and angles. There are a few songs on it that I feel like King Gizzard hasn't even gone near the sound of since. Take Her and I, which has quickly become one of my favorite Gizzard songs. I've been listening to Nonagon Infinity for longer. It's a great album, but I'm gonna say it. Mind Fuzz is better. And that's a KO for Mind Fuzz, and you know what that means, people. The 2014 album, I'm In Your Mind Fuzz, has claimed victory, and with it, the spot for my favorite King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album. Thanks to everyone for watching to the end, and let me just say, I dearly hope that Fishing for Fishies lives up to the other records here today. please don't forget to like and subscribe for more Season 4 content.